Okay, where you at? Let me pin both of us. Let me find you again. Hey, everyone. Happy all good morning, evening, afternoon. We're a little bit of everything. Oh, there you are. Hold on, Mike. Let me find you again. There we go. Add pin. All right. What's today? Tuesday. Usually I do these on Thursday, but happy Tuesday, everybody. Welcome. Today we have Mike Parkinson joining us. A lot of you may know or not know him. If you don't, he will be providing lots. Yes, I'm not sure, Kimberly. It must have been the link that we had sent out. Yes, but a lot of you are Mary Lasky Bell, who is my email manager. But yes, if you do want to change your name, you right click on your photo or whoever you are. Might be hard to find which one you are though, and you hit rename. So you do the 3 dots and then rename. I'm not sure why some of you are this time. Usually we don't have that issue, but that's okay. So let me share my screen and we will get started. So it is already August. My kids are back in school. Thank goodness. I don't know about the rest of you, but they are in school now 2 weeks. So we are super excited. Although we were already sick the second week of school. So that is the joys of going back to school. Yeah, even though we weren't sick in the summer or in the spring. So welcome to our August webinar. I'm Angie Wolfe. We are going to learn some secrets on turning words into winning graphics. Joining us this month is Mike Parkinson. Today's expectations, be active, participate, video on if you can. It is a lot easier for Mike and I when we are talking or interacting to see who we're talking to versus a bunch of names. So feel free to put your video on and no stupid questions. Feel free to ask questions in the chat as we go through the presentation and Mike's teachings this morning. If you have a question as he's going through it, feel free to put it in right away. I will ask him and interrupt him towards the end before he goes on so we can make it relevant versus waiting to the end. So if you have questions, put them in the chat and we'll be sure to ask him. The goal is to get the recording sent out tomorrow, maybe today. So we'll see how what my to-dos look like. And then also in the chat, we know where a lot of you are from, but if you haven't done it already, introduce yourself in the chat, name, role, where you're from. Looks like we are all over the world today on this Tuesday. So my name is Angie Wolfe. I am the owner, founder, master trainer of Ideas at Dawn. We bring large civil engineering and construction firms a competitive advantage with their proposals to help them win more work without adding on more payroll. In addition to the proposal management, we also do a bunch of trainings like these. In addition to free webinars, we also do some other proposal trainings, leadership training, a little bit of everything. And today joining us is Mike Parkinson. He is a CPP APMP fellow, say that a few times. One of Microsoft's only 36 PowerPoint MVPs, a best-selling author, a thought leader in the proposal industry. So we are very happy and privileged to have him here. He's a partner at 24 Hour Company, a premier creative services firm, and owns the $1 Billion Graphics. So you may have seen his graphic that he has related to, how big is that sheet graphic, Mike? Is that 11 by 17?
12 by 18.
12 by 18. That's how I knew Mike long time ago when I started with APMP. So you may have seen that, and this is the guy behind it. And today he has short hair, but if you saw him a few months ago at APMP, oh no, I think he had short hair too. But yeah, So that is it. So I will hand it over back to Mike.
All
so
right.
I will stop sharing and it is all yours.
Okay. I am going to say, it says you cannot share the screen while another person. There we go. I got it.
There you go. Now you
There
can.
we go. Here we go. Sharing now. I promise I'm going to make this worth your while. We're going to get a whole lot of stuff out of it. As Angie said, please ask questions. Angie's going to keep an eye on the chat for me and she'll interject. You can, at any point in time, just unmute yourself and reach out to me. Please don't feel like you have to wait for me to catch my breath, because I usually don't. I get so excited about this stuff. We're talking about at-a-glance proposal graphics. At the very end of this, I'm going to give you a link to download all this really cool stuff that's going to make your job super, super duper easy. When we approach any visual for a bid, proposal, marketing document, it doesn't matter what it is. We have to remember that it's a conversation between two people. When I say a conversation, it's a conversation between the author, this is the person who makes the graphic, and the reviewer, the evaluator, the decision maker. This is the person who learns from the graphic what they need to know in order to give you the win. Or if it's a presentation, it's what the person needs to learn in order to adopt what you're sharing or understand it. The perception from the author's perspective should always be, well, why am I sharing this? Whereas the reviewer is thinking, well, why should I care about this? If we put those two perspectives together, we're going to come up with successful at-a-glance graphics. We are living in an at-a-glance society. We have proof everywhere we look. We no longer request that information be clear and compelling. We require it. Think about this. When you go to a website and you don't find what you're looking for very quickly, do you stay there for minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, or do you move on to the next website? Our brains are set up to want information as efficiently as we can. The process I'm going to share with you today, I broke it up into a cute little what is it, acronym, gas cap. If you're overseas, petrocap, but gas cap. And it's just a way, if you think about what we're doing, we're essentially filling up the evaluator or reviewer or decision maker's head with the information they need to get the win. You don't have to use the acronym. I just came up with it. Use whatever you want. The most important thing is you remember the process. The first phase of the process is all about conceptualization, and that requires having a goal. When I say goal, I mean, why is the author sharing this information? It is essentially the after. After the evaluator, the decision maker, the reviewer absorbs this information, what will they be able to do or understand or know? And we want to be very clear with what that is. For example, maybe we're communicating the schedule of deliverables, or perhaps how our process mitigates risk, or how do we identify coding errors quickly, or what's our solution at a 10,000 kilometer level or foot level, or what about why our solution is better than our competition's. There's lots of things that there's lots of specific goals that we're going to have. When we create a graphic, we should always know what that goal is going to be before we create the graphic. That becomes our North Star. That becomes the thing that helps us ground what content goes in. The next thing we're going to do is we are going to announce to the evaluator or reviewer why they should care about this and what it is. And how I do that is I use a technique that summarizes all of our content at a glance. So ultimately, remember, the reviewer, the decision maker, the evaluator is resource starved. They're thinking, well, every evaluator I've ever interviewed said, we want to know two things. What's your solution and why should I pick you? So we need to summarize that as quickly and efficiently as possible. The technique I use, I call M&M. And I broke it up into two parts. Every summary, every announcement is going to be a motivator and a means. The motivator gives the audience, gives the evaluator, the reviewer, an emotional reason to care. And it also connects the dots to the means, which is the intellectual reason to care. So ultimately, we're saying to them, hey, we're going to make your job easier by doing this thing. So you're giving them a motivator and a means. So an example might be, hey, would you like, as an evaluator, as a reviewer, would you like to make your job easier, or would you like to make the job easier for other people that you work with? Well, then you want to use this new tool. What you're doing is you're setting up a reason. You're contextualizing your new tool. You're giving the audience a reason to care. This is just an example. You can have up to 3 motivators because you have 3 different types of evaluators, reviewers, or decision makers. You have strategic reviewers. These are the bosses. You have tactical reviewers. These are the people that have to do the work. And then you have people that are just reviewers because they were called in at the last second, or they are completely objective. They have no stake in the game. They have no horse in the race. Those are the 3 types of reviewers. So you would have a different motivator for each one of those types, depending upon who your audience is. And then you give them the means. So once we've done the announcement, then we move on to the next step in the conceptualization phase of creating successful at-a-glance graphics. And that is to spell it out. When I say spell it out, what I essentially mean is prove what you said, provide evidence. Trust is the closest thing to a silver bullet in bids and proposals. So if we don't prove what we're talking about, we're going to lose. So if we go back to the example I gave you, make your job easier by using this new tool, we have our motivator, we have our means, then we are going to have that dialogue with the reviewer or evaluator. So essentially, the reviewer is going to say, well, what is the new tool and how will it make my job easier? They're going to ask those questions. It is incumbent upon us to answer those questions as efficiently as possible because, again, we live in an at-a-glance society. Oh, the new tool, it's right here in your ribbon. Okay. And when you click on it, it automatically creates your reports. Oh, all right. So we take those perspectives. So right now, we're just conceptualizing. We're simply at its core doing discovery, if you will. The next thing we need to do is turn that information into a graphic, because right now it's just words on a page, ideas in our head. So the first thing that I'm going to do is chunk the information that I have captured. What do I mean by chunk it? I mean break it up into bite-sized digestible chunks. So an example might be, here's my proposal graphic. I want my client to adopt our new software tool. Great. The announcement or the message is going to be make your job easier, motivator, by using this new tool, means, motivator and means. Spell it out. Now I have to prove it. The new tool is called Auto Report. It's a new button found in the main menu. It automatically generates your project reports. Once, excuse me, all tracking fields are completed and the project milestones are met, the reports are then automatically emailed to all of the stakeholders. Cool. That's awesome. But that's not a graphic. Those are words on a page. So I'm going to begin to chunk the information. I'm going to begin to highlight the most important bits of information in that narrative that I want to communicate to the reviewer. The next thing I'm going to do once I finish breaking it up or chunking the information is to assemble it. So I'm going to assemble it to tell a story. There's an old saying in bids and proposals. Facts tell and stories sell. It's great that you have factual information, but if you don't contextualize it, then I really am not buying into what you're saying. So now what we're going to do is we are going to tell a story. So let's take that same information that we had, same chunked information. We're going to remove all of the other parts of the narrative because I don't need it anymore. This is what I believe is the most important part. I'm going to pull it out. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to reassemble it to tell a story. So I'm guessing that it needs to end with making our job easier. I got that part. Where should I begin? Well, maybe I should start with once all tracking fields are completed, the project milestones are met. I click the auto report. It automatically generates and automatically emails to my project stakeholders. Ipso facto, it makes my job easier. So you can see we went from just a narrative to something that's getting much, much closer to a graphic. The next thing we're going to do after we assemble the information, let me see if any questions in the chat. Everyone, cool. Awesome. Make sure I don't have any questions in the chat. I'm going to keep going then. The next thing we're going to do is we are going to picture it. We're going to picture the information that we're talking about. And there's lots of ways to do it. My recommendation is to use something I'm going to give you for free as part of this webinar, and that's a graphic cheat sheet. So every graphic that we are ever going to make in the history of any bid or proposal is going to fit into one of these categories down the left side. Meaning that when we're creating a graphic, let's say, Matt, you're creating a graphic, or Laura, you're creating a graphic, and it needs to show hierarchy. Well, then you would pick a graphic type in that row, or it needs to show architecture or structure or process or flow. There's different modalities, different ways to communicate that same information. And you have an embarrassment of riches when it comes to picking which one. So let's say we need to show relationship. If your information is simple, you could choose from the yellow column. If your information is more complex, you could choose from the orange column. And if it's amount, value, or time, let's say Cassandra's working on something and she needs to show changes over time as far as the relationship via amounts. She could use a bar chart, an area chart, something like that. So basically what we're doing is a quantitative graphic. So simple is yellow, more complex is orange, quantitative, amount, value, or time is blue. So now you can pick. You can say, hey, I'm going to choose a Venn diagram, but been there, done that. I don't want to do that. What about a puzzle graphic? I feel like it's an overused metaphor. You can completely, at your prerogative, can jump over to the orange column and say, what about a funnel graphic? And you think for a second, you think, no, that's not it. Close, but not right. What about a pipe graphic? Well, the good news is if you don't know what that means, there's a link on the web, on the graphic cheat sheet that you're going to download that allows you to see hundreds of examples of these graphics rendered. So you can take a look and say, oh, what does a pipe graphic look like? Oh, that's good, but I don't think it's going to work really well. And then you can move on and you say, well, what the heck is a spiral graphic? And you see an example and you say, that's it. That's what I want. So now what you're able to do is, instead of wasting all this money and time making a Venn diagram and it's wrong, puzzle and it's wrong, funnel and it's wrong, pipe and it's wrong, you're able to see what you're going to make before you make it. So it's going to save you a ton of time. So I recommend using this graphic cheat sheet to come up with a graphic type. The other technique that I like to use to make my job easier is, once I decide, hey, this is a process diagram, what options do I have? I am going to then sketch it out, meaning I don't want to open up Adobe Illustrator, PowerPoint, Canva, whatever your tool is. I don't want to open up anything yet until I know the concept's going to work. So I will pick one of these, let's say a road graphic. So on a piece of paper, I don't care if it looks like you drew it with your foot. I don't care. It's not all about fancy drawing. Rita, I know, Rita, that you've said you can't draw very well, but I promise you can do this. I promise. Jasmine, you can do this. So let's say, look how, I'm just being fancy now because I went to Baltimore School for the Arts, fancy guy. So what I'm doing is I'm drawing a road. You can draw a road any way that you want. I'm going to give these numbers 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. So I've got 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So what we're going to say is, at the very end of this, you're going to get 5. It's going to make your job easier. Huzzah! In order to get there, you've got to go through these signs. These signs are the different steps to get you down the path. In each sign is one of the numbers, 1, 2, 3, 4, and finally get to 5. So you would put the words in there. So we look at it, we go, is this a good way to go? Crystal, Tasha, Breck, is this a good way to go? I don't know. You would decide based on your insight into the subject matter, the medium it's going to be shared, and your customer, your ultimate reviewer. So you decide, yep, that's it. And if you don't like it, you just scratch it out and try a different method. So that's what I recommend. Use the graphic cheat sheet, come up with an idea, do a rough sketch, See if it's going to work through it in your head before you commit to spending all that money and time rendering it. Now, when it comes to rendering it, I'm going to give you two options. In my world, you can either build it or buy it. So you can either do it yourself or you can get somebody else to do it for you. So of course, the best case scenario is you hire someone that can do it better, faster, cheaper than you. For example, maybe you have in-house designers. That's great. Or perhaps you have a company like ours, yay, or freelance designers. But the bottom line is we got to make sure that they are experienced because it's a different beast. Doing what we do is different than a marketing graphic. It really is. And for someone to know that, it's really important. So for example, let me give you an example. Let me move forward here. Do this. Quit out of this. Oh, you're going to work. Because I'm an experienced designer, I've been doing bids and proposals for almost 30 years, I'm going to know things that most people don't. For example, what style do you choose for your bid? Number one, what does that mean? But number two, yeah, what style do I choose? So I'm going to give you a little bit of background to help you choose the right style for your bid. So back in the day, if you could do a design that looked photorealistic, that was 3D, people thought you were the bee's knees. They said, whoa, that's so freaking awesome. And that was called skeuomorphism. We're trying to make things look like reality. And then in or around the 2000, whatever it was, we invented something called the smartphone. And the smartphone had a really small user interface. So all of those which were once 20 or 30 pixels by 30 pixels, were now shrunk down to 8 pixels by 8 pixels. So we had a simplified or flat style. And that became the style du jour since those smart devices became ubiquitous. That was associated with innovative design. So back in the day, skeuomorphism was innovative because people said, how'd you do that? And then when things got simplified, we associated these devices with modern and innovative. And so we associated the aesthetic with that. Well, in 2015 or 16, the Google said, we love the flat style. But sometimes I need a little bit of skeuomorphism. So what they created was something called the material style. What it does is it blends the best of both of these styles. It says, sometimes I need 3D. I'm going to use it, but I'm going to avoid unnecessary aesthetic embellishment. Why am I telling you this? Because if my target audience is roughly over 40 years old, 45, 50 years old, something like that, when they grew up, they associated skeuomorphism with higher end design, higher end, more innovative solutions. That's their vocabulary, their visual vocabulary. People who are under 40, their visual vocabulary was more simplified. That was how they associated something with modern and innovative. But what happens if we don't know the age of our reviewers? Well, what we have found is no matter how old the person is, they tend to appreciate and value the material style. So for example, if I were to show this graphic to someone under 40, this is a rule of thumb. This isn't always true because I don't necessarily align with these either. But rule of thumb is if I show this to someone under 40, they would say, this seems like a marketing graphic. It seems like there's a lot of aesthetic embellishment. This is the skeuomorphic design. Whereas if I showed a flat design to someone over 40, they might say something like, well, I could have made that, or it doesn't pop for me. I need it to pop more. So what we're doing is we're potentially alienating an entire demographic. Whereas if I show a material design to any demographic, they typically go, oh, that looks like a good graphic. I'm not likely to alienate anybody. Someone that's been doing bids and proposals for a long time knows these techniques in order to get you the highest score, the best review, the thumbs up, the buy-in from the decision maker and the evaluator. All right, so you can't hire someone to do it. You can't. What do? Well, you can build these types of graphics yourself. If you were to look at this graphic, it really is broken down into simple shapes. So this is a circle. This is an arrow. This is a cylinder. All of these are basic shapes. When you get into more complex shapes, it requires that you put more effort into it to learn how to do it. So for example, to make that really cool looking funnel, this is how I had to build it. This is going to be in your downloads. So if you really want to get good at building this stuff, I can give you step-by-step instructions on how you can make just about anything you can imagine. And I'm doing it in PowerPoint because of its ubiquity, but it absolutely works in Adobe Illustrator and just about every other graphics package out there. It works this way as well. However, in my experience, your time isn't best spent learning how to build this stuff from scratch in PowerPoint. So I'm going to give you some resources that I use to speed up my graphic design, my ability to make graphics in the blink of an eye. Two of my favorites are going to be Pexels and Pixabay, and I'll put those into the chat window right now. So let's do this. Pexels, going into chat. Let me know if I'm going too fast, by the way. Oh, shall I use this? Oh, I put the wrong thing. Sorry, that was an email to somebody else. I was sending an email because I didn't know the link to, sorry about that. Sending a link.
Right.
Yeah, I can't get the darn Pexels to.
I can type it in, Mike.
Yeah, Pexels and Pixabay. Thank you very much.
Pexels.
Well, now you know Alice and Angie what email I sent to them this morning. Anyway, so Pexels and Pixabay. Go ahead.
Pixabay. No, you're good. I was checking it. You're good.
Yep. Pexels is a great tool, great for free photographs and videos. There's two types of graphics in the world of bids and proposals. There are raster images, which are photographs. They're made up of pixels. And then there are vector images, which are images made up of math. You can easily change a vector-based image. They scale up and down without bloating file size, without losing resolution. Unsplash, Lisa, yes. Unsplashes. Pexels and Pixabay are free, Jamie. That is the only difference between Adobe Stock. Adobe Stock's better than Pexels and Pixabay. So if you can afford it, I find you get what you pay for. Don't get me wrong, Pexels and Pixabay give amazing value for free, but I find that if I just spend a little bit of money, I get way more exponential benefit. So don't be afraid to spend a couple $100 because the value that you get is worth tens of thousands of dollars in return. Think about it. If you can find a perfect image and it costs you $50 and you want to bid, how much money did that $50 investment make you? It's worth it, in my opinion. All right. Pixabay is another one. Unsplash is another fantastic resource. Another one I like that is for fee is iStock Photo, but it is for fee, so I didn't mention it. All right, the next one I'm going to share with you is a tool that I actually had a hand in creating. Me and my fellow geeks, my fellow PowerPoint MVPs made a tool because we couldn't find anything like it out there. It is what I think a groundbreaker. I use it all the time, but again, I have a horse in the race, so you decide. It's called Build a Graphic, and it only works at this time. It only works on Windows. So it does not work on a Mac. The way I'm showing this on my Mac is by running Parallels, which opens Windows on my Macintosh. So just know that you can run it on a Mac, but it's optimized for Windows. And here's how it works. So you have a PowerPoint open, and you can use this PowerPoint add-in, and it's $99 a year. So it's $99 a year. You can either build your graphic from scratch, or you can make pre-built graphics. I'm going to show you what I mean. And Angie, can you type in buildagraphic.com? Because I'm sure I'm going to accidentally type in something wrong. So what I'm going to do is totally going to mess it up. So first thing I'm going to do is remember what we learned. I'm going to chunk the information. So I'm going to break it up into bite-sized digestible chunks. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to delete information that I believe will be present in my written narrative or my spoken narrative. So I don't need to necessarily, let me close the chat window. I don't need to necessarily have all this additional information in there. So then what I'm going to do is I'm going to simply move the pieces around so that I can add supporting visuals. So I have something that kind of looks like this. Then I'm going to click on insert graphic. And the way it works is it looks at all the keywords and phrases on your slide, and it gives you a visual representation of those keywords or phrases. So assess. I'm going to go over to insert graphic, go over to assess, and I'm going to get a huge number of choices. And all of these are what's called vector graphics, and they are in what's called the material style. So I'm going to drop the graphic in here. And because it's vector based, I can scale it up or down. I can make it meet my brand standards. I can make it look like a blueprint. Like I'll give it a blue outline and a white fill, and it kind of looks like a blueprint. It's completely editable. So I got my graphic, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to scale it down. I'm going to reposition it where I want, and I'm going to flip it because I want her looking in toward the graphic. It's called psychic lines. So I'm going to choose a range. I'm going to choose flip it the other way. And once I do that, I'm going to repeat that step for each one of these until I have something that looks like this. Then it's my prerogative if I want to add more embellishment. Like let's say I want to add a circle, and you can easily in PowerPoint, there are things that are in the foreground, things that are in the background. I can send it to back, place it behind each one of these until I have something that looks like this. If I want, I can insert an arrow. Oh, here's another cool trick. So this, let me move this out of my way. Hold on. This is an old school arrowhead right here, old school arrow. This, if I grab this reshape node, this is a new school arrow. Less is best. So this is a new school arrow. So I'm gonna complete this, put the arrows next to it. Once I do that, I can then change the font of the graphic. I can drop it into a PowerPoint slide, change the background. All the graphics are 100% editable. I also have the luxury of building things from a kit of parts. Let's say I need to make a road graphic, where you're going to have all the pieces that you need to make every variation of a road graphic you can imagine. Pipe graphics are the same thing. Here's all my parts. I'm going to use these to create this pipe graphic. It doesn't meet my brand standards, so I'm simply going to change the color of the pipes. Or maybe I want to make it look more like a diagram, or maybe I want to color code it to something. I don't know. It's completely up to me. The other thing we could do is pre-built graphics, and I'll show you this very quickly, and then we'll jump back into everything else. So I'm going to take the same text. So what I'm looking for is 7 steps, something to communicate 7 steps. So I'm going to go to build a graphic. I'm going to go down to 7, and I'm going to see what options I have. I remember somebody said, hey, Mike, which one do I choose? And my answer is, hey, whatever you choose is better than just a wall of text. And I do not believe that graphics are better than text. Text isn't better than graphics. We need both of them. We absolutely need both of them. So I would look through here and find something that I want. I drop it in, whatever it is. And then what I'm going to do is I'm simply going to copy and paste the text from here, or type assess. Maybe I want to give it a step number. Let's say it's step number 1. So I'll say 01. And then I would just repeat that until I have something that looks like this. Once I do that, I've got my graphic. I can drop it into PowerPoint. I can drop it into whatever I want. Here's another cool trick. If I'm ever dealing with, let's say I'm ever dealing with font requirements. So in some government bids, we need to have a font size. So here's the secret. Once you create, so I took this text and I created this graphic. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to group the graphic together. And if I have an 8.5 by 11 document, let's say I'm working in the States and I have 1-inch margins, the graphic can be no bigger than 6.5 inches wide. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to scale the graphic down to 6.5 inches wide. I'm going to copy that graphic. I'm going to go into Microsoft Word or InDesign or whatever I'm working in, and I'm going to create a document, and I'm going to paste that graphic in there. If I don't scale the graphic in Word, the font remains the same size, and my text is 100% editable. So I can have, if someone's doing a word search in my proposal, in my bid, they'll find those keywords in my graphic. So that's another cool thing you can do. You get the idea. There are tons of graphics from which to choose. bore you to tears showing you examples. But these are ways that I speed up the development of my bids and proposals if I don't have access to a graphic designer, or I am a graphic designer and it just takes me too long to get these graphics done. I'm going to do it as quickly as possible. Here's a question. Mike, do you have something like this for Google Slides? Martin, you can export all these files directly into Google Slides. So they just save right into Google Slides. You can import the PowerPoint slides directly into Google Slides. How about using InDesign converted to Bluebeam presentation? I've never done it, Matt. I've never done it. What I recommend is give it a shot, see if it works. I don't even know what Bluebeam is. I know InDesign very well. So my recommendation is try it, see if it works, and then let me know in case someone else ever asks me this question, because I actually don't know the answer. Pause this. All right.
Hey, Mike, it works. It works. I'm just curious about building the graphics. So if anyone's curious about that, you can definitely do that and then convert it. Bluebeam's just a construction-based PDF interface, and our folks at our company are much more familiar with that than PowerPoint and actually using it to present. So that's why I asked.
Yep. Yeah. Thank you for sharing. And I didn't know that. Yeah. Please share from on top of the mountaintop, because there's so many people that would benefit from that. All right. Let's keep going. So that's picturing it. And by the way, this graphic that you're seeing is made up of basic shapes. So all that you're seeing is, and again, if you're using something like Bluebeam, whatever resource works best for you, use it. If it ain't broke, don't fix it, is my recommendation. So you can see all of these. This right here is an arc. This is called an arc. And the more comfortable you get with your favorite tool of choice, again, I'm using PowerPoint only because of its ubiquity. Play with it, keep doing it, and you'll be very, very happy with the results. Oh, here's the link I promised. Let me put this into, hopefully it lets me copy the darn thing.
Is it gonna work, Mike?
Yes, it does. There you go. There's the link. Go ahead and copy and paste it for yourself. It gives you the ability to download a lot of really cool stuff. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to hand it back over to Angie before we go to Q&A. I'm going to stop sharing. Is that okay, Angie, or should I keep sharing?
Nope, you're good.
Do stop sharing or don't?
Yeah, you're good to stop sharing.
All right, done.
Oops, hold on.
Yeah. Thanks again, Matt.
Okay. So what I wanted to go through real fast is back to my and because come on, Zoom, let's work today. Perfect. Okay. And because you guys were on the call today, we'll also send for those that weren't the recording, but this month we've been, if you're part of the email list, we've been talking everything related to proposal schedules and how to manage that. So this is my secret weapon for accountability and tracking progress when it comes to managing proposals and projects. It doesn't just have to be proposals. And why, which, hold on, wrong screen, let's work. And to help get a leg up on competition, it is Office Suite friendly. It'll save time, scan the QR code. I do not have it handy, actually. I'll put it in the chat here in a minute. I don't have a copy because I just copied Mike's link. So we won't put that again in, but scan the QR code. And you can go to the link to the page. So also, in addition to multiple types of schedules, which I can pull it up if someone has questions, but it's an Excel schedule in addition to like a Gantt chart, or it is a Gantt chart in my world. It also has a visual-based schedule for those that are visual, so it has a couple months in there, and then it also has a task tracking matrix, which would be like a responsibility matrix on steroids, because it has a scheduling component. So it would be like taking your P6 schedule or Microsoft project schedule and using it for a project or proposals that we can use, if we don't have access to those other softwares. In addition, if you have questions, I can send you a Loom video that I've done to show you how to use it, what that looks like, but no special software, just your Office suites. I do not have it built for Google. I will put the link in the chat. It's $47, guaranteed to make your life easier. And then also save time and focus. Mike's saving you time on the graphics side. I'll save you time on the proposal management side and scheduling component. So we can do more important things like creating better graphics and doing more with our proposals. So I will stop sharing. I will put that in the chat. What other questions do we have for Mike? Mike, you've got all of them to date. Anybody else have questions?
Well, I've certainly got one question that I wouldn't mind getting some answers to is what was your biggest takeaway? Was there any aha moments today? Definitely type it in the chat. And also, please, if you're like, oh, wow, I didn't know that. If there was anything that you saw. So a lot of the things that I preach, I practice. So if you were engaged in my presentation, if you got a lot out of it, what I'm sharing with you works. If you didn't, it doesn't work, don't do it. So just keep that in mind. So ask me any questions. So you got gas cap, the chart that tells you what graphic. Yeah, I know, right, Martin? Seriously. That graphic cheat sheet, I use it all the time. I made it, I remember years ago, I made it with my wife and I sitting at the dining room table. And to this day, it's part of my standard operating procedure. Going from words to graphic, that's awesome. Yeah, build a graphic, cool. 3 types of design. Yeah, absolutely. Oh, thank you. Everything was fascinating. Good, good. Ditto on the cheat sheet. Hell yeah, it saves so much time. No idea the age or influence your design. Yes, I know, right? Taking only the keywords from the pool. Yeah, absolutely, Crystal. Great work. Thank you. Yeah, the cheat sheet. Is there anything that you, for example, saw or that you wish I would have covered? The cheat sheet, I always struggle with what's important enough. Yeah, me too. Me too. Is there anything that you saw that you said, how in the heck did you do that, Mike? Anything that you have a question for, I'm happy to do it. People often ask me, what colors do you choose, or all kinds, what fonts and all these fun things. So I'm open for anything. But why if my file size is too big? Why is Angie so amazing? These are questions that I can help you get answers to.
And you did, Mike, you did your presentation in PowerPoint, correct? I had someone ask me that.
Yep, everything is PowerPoint. Yep, everything is PowerPoint. I'm an Adobe guy in the sense that I'm going to use Adobe Suite to create graphics because Adobe is a graphics package. But welcome to living in a Microsoft world. So I have learned to adapt to using Microsoft Office to do what I need to do. What is a mic? Okay, the photographic, nifty. Yep, hold on. Here's a question. How did you copy and paste into Word with that feature at the size? So essentially what I did, Anne, is I scaled the graphic in PowerPoint to the dimensions that I need it to be in Word. Then I just hit Control C, went into PowerPoint, I went into Word and hit Control V. Worst case scenario, you could paste special, but either one of those work. You can also export it as a PDF. That's the other thing that you could do. What is a Microsoft? And if that doesn't answer your question, ask again. Amanda said, what is a Microsoft MVP and how does one get that? A Microsoft MVP is someone that Microsoft believes is a good advocate for best practices, is a champion for how best to use one of their tools. And essentially they approach you and say, hey, we've seen you do a lot of training. You're not a jerk face. Would you like to become a Microsoft MVP? And I was honored to do so. It was a real honor. And I was surprised too, because again, Adobe guy using Microsoft because it's a Microsoft world. So someone has to nominate you and all from Microsoft. You can't, just get in. I guess I don't know PowerPoint enough. I see your graphics are moving like the dotted lines just outside the question mark. How? It's an animation. So let me show you. I'll show you some really cool animation techniques. So in PowerPoint, I have a circle. I just inserted a circle. And what I did was, I make sure Angie doesn't miss her next call.
You're good. We have 10 minutes, Mike.
Okay, good. So we have a circle and all I did was I gave it a dotted line. So one of your options under dashes, one of your options under shape outline is to give it dashes. So I gave it dashes. And then I went to animation. and then I told it to spin. So I did a spin animation, and I just told it to spin in perpetuity until I tell it not to. Another cool animation technique is something I call auto animation. Microsoft doesn't call it that. Microsoft calls it Morph. But the way it works is it does all the heavy lifting for you. So let's say I draw a box on a page, and I need that box to do something different on the next slide. So I'm going to duplicate the slide. Think of your slide as a stage, and on that stage you have actors. This actor right here appears on both of the stage images. So you got the same actor on one stage. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to change the wardrobe of the actor. I'm going to say I want it to be bigger, and I want it to, actually, no, you know what? I want it to rotate. I'll rotate it, and I want it to get bigger, and I want it to change color. So basically I took the actor, I took Bob, and I said, Bob, I want to change Bob, and Bob's now going to be wearing, Bob was wearing a pair of pants, and now he's going to be wearing a suit. So I just changed Bob's outfit. So if I switch under transitions to Morph, what Morph does is when I go from one slide to another, it does all the automatic animation in between. So I can easily transform Bob's outfit from the pants to the suit by simply clicking. So it does all what's called tweening in between. But what happens if I switched out the actors? What happens if I inserted a circle here instead? Bob switched out to Carol, or Danica, or Tamara, or Sally. So now we have Bob here and Danica here. So now if I went to the transition, if I use that same Morph transition, PowerPoint has no idea what to do because it's just changed actors. So I have to tell PowerPoint, no, this is the same actor. So I have to trick PowerPoint. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to Arrange under my Home tab, Selection pane, and I'm going to, under the file name. So basically every selection pane shows you every actor on your stage. I'm going to change the name to exclamation point, shape, whatever you want to call it. It must have exclamation point, and the name. Whatever you want to call it, I'm calling it shape. I'm going to go back to the previous slide. I'm going to change it from rectangle 1 to exclamation point, shape. So what I just told PowerPoint is they're the same actor. So now when I go between slides, it will automatically do all the animation for me. So whoever asked me about animating, that is a sneaky little thing that you can do. Martin said, sorry. Yes, Martin, of course. Absolutely. Reach out to me on LinkedIn. Here's my email address. Just email me. You're more likely to get me that way. Very cool. All right. So there you go. Anybody can email me. Just know that I'm a busy fella. So there's a possibility that there may be a delay in my response, and I promise I'll get to you. And let me see one other thing. Hold on. You also have my office number. My office number is there. Just leave a message and I can also call you back. So any other questions or thoughts before we close out for the day? In one graphic table or photo is one graphic per table. The question from Anne, is one graphic per table or photo per page recommended to break up text, or is it more important? So one of the things I do is teach for Shipley Associates, and they always said, hey, one graphic per page, and I disagreed. I said, wow, I super disagree, and this is why. And they said, no, Mike, you're right. When we say a graphic per page or slide, we don't mean, just a visual. We also mean bullets or a call out box or something like that. So what they're saying, what Shipley was always saying was, give me something to focus on the page. What's the most important thing on the page? My rule of thumb is you only use a graphic when it meets 3 criteria. Number 1 is it's a critical success factor. If the evaluator, the reviewer, the decision maker misses or misunderstands it, it needs to be a graphic. because it's really important. It needs to stand out. Number two, it's too complex to understand textually, meaning that if you were to explain to me a large organization's org chart textually, it'd be far more difficult for me to follow. Again, we live in an at-a-glance society. Pick the most efficient way to communicate that information. It's going to be an org chart. And the third reason is the reason I don't usually use, but it does come up, is I want to elicit a very specific emotional response. Think of a proposal cover. I'm going to use a visual on the proposal cover because I want to elicit a very specific emotional response. I used to teach, I still do, but I used to teach evaluation or review, how proposals or bids are evaluated and reviewed in certain verticals. I still do, but the verticals have slightly changed. And in these verticals, there were people who reviewed bids and proposals all the time, like the Defense Acquisition University kind of thing. And they said that they would literally bet, I'm not joking, they would bet who's going to win the bid based on the quality of the cover. So I do want people to look at the cover of our bid and be predisposed to want to choose us. So that's the third reason. I want to elicit a very specific emotional response. That's my recommendation, Anne, for what it's worth. Any other questions before we close out? All righty. I believe that takes us to darn close to the top of the hour. Yes, Angie?
Yes, great job, Mike. Thank you.
Cool
So
beans.
again, the recording will be sent out either later today or tomorrow. We'll see if YouTube cooperates, see if Google cooperates with the rest of us. Yes, connect with Mike, Twitter. You have his email, phone number, LinkedIn. I think he's a little bit of everywhere, just like some of us. And yeah, if there's any questions, I will also send out those links, Mike, in the follow-up email as well. So we have all of those. And then if you need anything else, reach out to me. LinkedIn, email as well, wherever that works. Otherwise, have a great Tuesday. Enjoy the rest of your week. Use some of those strategies Mike talked to us about today and go create some awesome graphics.
Thank you, Angie. Thanks everybody
Awesome.
for being
Thank
here.
you all.
Thank
All right,
you.
see
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you again, Angie.
Of course. Thanks, Mike.
I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing and close out. Is that okay?
You're good.
Awesome. Bye, everybody.
Cool. Thanks.